promised, Dawn's niece Queenie is here. Good morning, Queenie.
Good morning.
Now, we don't actually have a theme song for you, but we used to do reports on the transgender community, and we had a transgender pile song.
Transgenders, more than meets the eye.
That's weird. I'm going to listen to that.
So, Dawn shared your story right before we went on holiday break.
Yes.
And so many people were curious and wanted to hear more. And you've been working and hanging around here for a few months. You've been more than willing to come on. And so that's exciting. Now, what I want to do is give you a chance to tell us in your own point of view what the hell has been going on with you for the last many years. But also, we've been transfixed over the last few weeks on that person that wrote in. Drinking game at home. How many times? The guy that wrote in and said when he does job interviews and he asks the person, okay, you're trapped in a car underwater, what do you do? And if their response is, well, how did I get there? He doesn't hire him. And we're kind of trapped in the car with you underwater.
Yes.
So while it's important that we talk about how you got to this point, there's so many questions that people have about what else is going on.
Yeah.
So for people that have been listening a long time, we remind them, people originally knew you as Nephew Dominic.
Yes.
So, and you're how old now?
I'm 24.
Okay, so as you were growing up as Dominic, give us your version of when you started to feel different, wrong, weird, special, whatever you want to call it.
I think it was around the time that I started kind of going to school, being around other kids.
Literally elementary school?
Yeah, as early as kindergarten. I remember one day I tied my shirt up in the front. My mom lost it, of course, but like it was little things like that. Like I remember seeing the girls do certain things and wanting to emulate that. Not that I necessarily all the way always fit in with the girls, but I definitely didn't fit in with the boys.
So when you did things like tie your shirt up and you said your mom lost it, what was the reaction? What was the back and forth? And did you even understand I'm trying to act like a girl or be a girl, or how did you voice that?
No, I think for me, I was just kind of like doing it. Like there's always like these really random things, like the towel on the head, pretending it's your hair. And like for me, I never really like considered that as like, oh, it's because I want to be a woman. It was just like, oh, I'm just doing this. But it didn't take me long to realize that there was an adverse reaction from the adults in my life to what I was doing. Like there was something that they were privy to that I was not, that all of these things symbolized. So I thought I was gay.
Did that squelch it then because of the way they were acting?
Yeah, I guess. I think that I've never stopped being who I am or stopped doing things that I wanted to do. I kind of just got sneakier at it or got better at making up excuses like, oh, I want to grow my hair long because of this male singer. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what I mean? Like It was always kind of just like a game of semantics as far as like what the actual drive is.
Now, you said you thought you were gay. When did you think you were gay?
Well, kids would just always tell me that I was gay. And I didn't know what transgenderism was. You know what I mean? As soon as I got the language and I understood the community and like what each thing was, I never came out as gay. I never told anybody I was gay. I never had that moment with myself of that struggle. I came out as transgender. You know what I mean? Like I never had like the pit stop to Gay Town.
We told her she was gay.
Yeah.
And her therapist told her
and that was all a function of adults, and then also now when the kids, when they were calling you gay, were they saying you were gay under the same guise, or was it that thing that kids do where they insult each other and say, "Oh, you're gay," or did they really think that you were a boy who liked other boys and that's why you were acting like a girl, which is
yeah, like that's what they knew.
Okay,
because I was just very effeminate. Like I remember my first day of school.
As you sit here playing with your hair.
Yeah, literally. No, I remember like the first day of school, I was getting on the bus, and that was the first time I ever heard like the F word, not the like UFU one,
the Bob Saget word.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Bundle of sticks. That was the first time I had heard that. Like I didn't even know what they were calling me, but they were calling me that as soon as I was around other kids. So it was more like when I started having interactions with peers that I started like connecting the dots. But I think that for a lot of transgender people, there's lots of like things that like that come up that you realize, oh, the other little boys or the other little girls aren't doing this or acting like this or have a desire for this. But you don't necessarily, like, you don't have the language for something like that. You don't know how to explain to people like, oh, I'm a girl. That's my problem.
So when you said you never identified as gay, you just came out as transgender. But
no, there was a period of time where I identified as gay, but I never came out as gay.
Okay, you personally identified as gay?
I let people identify me as gay.
And then, so at what point in your life, what age did you first tell somebody, I'm supposed to be a girl, or I was a girl, or I need to be a girl, or however you said it?
Probably about 12, 13.
And who'd you tell?
My best friend, her and I grew up since we were like 5 years old together. She was fat. I was, effeminate. So we were like naturally drawn to one another.
The outcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So her and I kind of just found each other, and she was always somebody that I ran my thoughts through. And her and I would like look up stuff about like trans people, because there was always like the Jerry Springer stuff that would come up, and I remember being like ridiculously fascinated with Ace Ventura, the whole storyline with like the trans woman. Like I remember being really like overly like fascinated with like, oh, that used to be a guy, and now like she's a woman.
Finkel is Einhorn.
Yeah,
Einhorn and Finkel.
So yeah, it was just like little things like that, and like we had the internet. I'm sure for people who were coming out long ago and they didn't have those resources, it was a little different.
So how long after you tell your best friend do you tell anyone else?
I didn't really like volunteer the information to too many people. I kind of would just be like, oh yeah, no, like I just like to wear long hair, or I like to wear makeup. It's fine.
You're wearing makeup now as a kid in high school, a boy in high school.
Middle school. Yes.
Middle school.
Yes.
Okay. And so now at this point, the adults in your life are really thinking you're gay.
Well, it's like my mom was not, she was in a place where she just wasn't present. Like I'd be in and out of my house whenever I wanted to. I'd leave for school and she wouldn't be around, you know what I mean? So I didn't have to run it past anybody. I was just kind of living my life. I didn't see my dad often or anybody else, or Dawn, because she was here.
So this begs the question, to just jump in real quick, because people are screaming, well, that's what happened to you.
Yeah, right.
You had you acknowledge you had a somewhat not around mother.
Yes.
And you didn't see your dad very. What was the dad? Because Psych 101. The reason, Queenie, you're Queenie, is because you didn't have a positive male role model who was there to beat the crap out of you and tell you you're supposed to be a boy. Maybe they wouldn't go as far as beat the crap. But what about those family dynamics? People do wonder and want an explanation. Okay, you're a troubled kid, and this is the result of it. Why are they wrong?
Well, yeah, I was definitely a troubled kid. I won't deny that at all. And I think that me lacking a male role model has more so like driven me to have issues in dating than it's had like for me to have issues in my my gender identity. But my dad was never super around in general, so it wasn't like I had the strong male role model who was ripped away from me or something. You know what I mean?
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have two older sisters.
Would they also describe your dad as not being around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But we all have different dads.
Yep.
2 siblings, 3 different dads.
Yes.
Yep.
So, to the people, because we got a few emails here that are you're checking every box.
Yes.
You're for them.
Absolutely.
You're just
I'm kind of the stereotype.
You're kind of some word for their words between nuts, mentally ill, troubled. Again, why are they wrong?
Well, I mean, they're right, but not about the trans thing.
They're not related.
Yeah, they're not related.
The 2 things are not related. Dude,
they're absolutely correct.
By the way, we got this, on that note, we got this email from Chanel. Says, Queenie, you're my favorite. You have the best one-liners. Pit stop to Gay Town. You're my hero. Now, speaking of that, and you mentioned, we're going to bounce around a little bit here, but you mentioned the dating world. This is another area where people have no concept of the understanding.
Yes.
They confuse transgenderism and sexuality.
Yes.
So what are you attracted to?
Men. I'm straight, or I identify as straight, as other transgender women who like men do. I think that verbiage gets a little confusing for people because they're like, wait, you still have these parts, so how is that straight if it's just that's a kind of a messy area to describe. I actually have this here if I could read it.
Sure.
Psychologists who have researched the subject and arousal patterns of men have found it conclusive that the arousal response patterns are unlike that of gay men, but instead resemble that of heterosexual men, except that in addition, they are attracted to trans women. In addition to cis women, they are attracted to trans women. So it's not about gayness. It goes back to neurology, kind of anything to do with transgenderism that we, as far as we know, scientifically, it goes back to neurology, as well as the response patterns from men when attracted to trans women. They're attracted to curves. They're attracted to signs of femininity. They're attracted to womanhood.
Well, it makes total sense to me because you're a woman.
Yes.
Now, I understand you have biological parts still
yes.
as a male, but you are a woman, and you don't question that, and your brain doesn't question that. What kind of guy are you attracted to?
I mean, I don't really have...
Oh, is this a problem at home?
Oh, man.
I don't really have, like, a super specific type.
A bad boy.
Well, she's young. She's in that phase.
A very masculine boy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I like guys. Like, I don't really like a guy who takes longer to get ready than me.
Mm-hmm. No, well, you're going to have to date older men.
Yeah. Well, I I mean, sure. I don't really have like an age thing, to be honest. Like, if I like somebody, I like them.
Yes. By the way, has Auntie Dawn criticized you for showing the midriff again today?
Not today.
God.
Okay. But I think she knew it was because like any cameras in here are shooting from like the waist up, so nobody could tell.
Well, and I knew,
Brandon, lower the camera.
I wasn't going to say anything like that to her before she gets in here.
After.
Right? Like, I don't know, is she nervous or whatever? Oh, after. It's like, yeah.
Sit her
hide
down.
that.
You do the nightly airing of grievances, everything she's doing wrong as a young woman.
Oh, my gosh. Every time she leaves the house, I'm like, you are so lucky you're not 15, 16. I would be changing your clothes.
Couple of emails here. We'll take calls too. 888-989-9811. Lot to talk about. No name on this one. Says, first impression of Queenie is she's very well spoken. She sounds very intelligent. And I thank you for coming on the radio and explaining this topic for those that don't fully understand. You go, girl.
Oh, thank you.
Then there's this from Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey.
It's a two-parter. I'll do it in reverse order because this goes back to last December. Dawn had shared the story of when she went to the airport expecting to pick up Dominic and reacted a certain way when they met. I would love to hear Queenie's memory of that encounter as Dawn breaks into tears again because she's got to be melodramatic. It's Academy Award season.
Yeah, I think that obviously now, like, I'm not speaking from a place of like hurt anymore.
Let me real quick set this up. So she's expecting her nephew to get off the plane, and you're full on dressed as a girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I think that, especially because I was coming from the environment at home where nobody was questioning me, nobody was stopping me from doing whatever I wanted to do. I think that I was certainly like I wasn't ignorant to the fact that there might be a bit of a reaction from her that was less than supportive, but I've always kind of been like, I can talk my way through anything just about. So I was like, oh, I'll just get her loosen up. And plus I'm like, this is my aunt who's like, she was always like the glamour girl, lots of makeup, hair, outfits all the time. She would come to town.
That's back when she tried.
Yes.
So in my mind, I'm like, oh, we're gonna, go do probably like a girly thing, and I'm thinking that it's gonna be like the time of my life. But I could tell by the look on her face when I got off the plane, like when I walked out and I was waving to her, I could tell by the look on her face that
It was
she
not
was
going
like,
to be the time of your life.
oh no.
So
Like,
you remember it vividly.
vividly. Yeah.
And what was your reaction how old were you?
I was 13.
Was it horror, shame, disappointment? Do you remember?
I think that at that time I was not really in touch with whatever I was feeling. I think that I was just kind of I existed to just adapt to whatever was going on, and so the way that I adapted was just like, okay, take on whatever. I was very chameleon-like as a kid, so it was like, oh, you need me to be like this? I know what I am, but if you need me to be this way so I can get along, survive, I can chameleon my way through
And
that.
this was a visit for a week or whatever, a weekend?
Yeah, it was a couple days or something.
So did you adapt? Did you just become a boy again for Aunt Dawn?
Yeah, and then the second I got back home, I was like, okay, time to put on the good lash and a gilda. You know what I mean?
And you, Dawn, is this when, did you get on the phone and call your sister and go, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
And that whole
I went
thing?
and got her a haircut and told her this is completely unacceptable. What are you doing? You're a boy. We need to get you help.
And so this is
You need help.
This is about 10 years ago, which brings us to the other question from Kelsey.
Yes.
Can Queenie please explain why she is living with Dawn and Gary right now? Pretty big transformation from then to now, obviously. For both of you in so many ways.
Well, I think that it was so the incident had happened with me coming out here to visit with Dawn and Gary, and by the way, I call her Aunt Dawn. I'm not just being like flagrantly disrespectful right now. I'm just using shorthand for the sake of the story. But when I came out here for to visit with Dawn and Gary, and all of that had transpired, and there was the discussion of therapy to like remedy this identity issue. I went to that therapist, and I was kind of thoroughly beat down a little bit by this man as far as my views on life. Never myself. That's what I mean by like my view on myself never changed. I knew what I was, but I was convinced that there's no way to live a successful, happy life if I were honest about that. So it was never, okay, I'm a man, I'm a gay man, that's what I am. It was, this is what everybody needs me to be, so I will just settle into, I have a female spirit. Like, I kind of came to terms in my own way, I guess. But it was never like I was brainwashed or anything like that. I was just kind of like going along to get along.
And then what transpires to where here you are living now for what, over a year with Dawn and Gary?
Well, through high school, I was not honor roll student by any means. I was, I would.
Which actually is, it's surprising if people, hear you now because you are so intelligent.
So
of course,
smart.
if you have the backdrop, I assume you weren't a good student because of everything that was going on in your head and your life.
Yeah, I mean, even in elementary school, my mom never really looked over my homework, so I was like getting D's and F's when I was in first grade. Like, I literally never passed a single class all the way through school. And so by the time high school was rolling
How
around,
did you keep getting pushed forward?
That's what
no
they
kid left
do.
behind.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, we never it was never even a question we thought to ask my sister, because what parent doesn't sit down and go over their homework? Like, she did that with the other two, you know? But by the time you got, she was doing other things.
So basically, I had kind of fell into this place where it was like a lot of partying, but like it was partying with like great outfits that we would all make ourselves. So it wasn't destitute. It was creative. It was fashion forward.
This is through high school.
Yeah, this is through high school, and then the couple years after, and then I met somebody when I was 20, and I was living as a gay man, I guess, but like very sorry excuse for a man kind of thing. But it was a relationship that was definitely toxic, to say the absolute least, violent in a lot of ways. And I kind of just, me and Aunt Dawn had kind of came into contact again for the first time in years around that time. And she'd actually been planning to come out and visit. And it was just a couple days before that. And because her and I had been talking, and I think that she was picking up on signals that the relationship that I was in was abusive, just from her own experience, that her and I had conversations that were like lightly touching on the subject. So there was a particular incident where I did leave, and I called her, and she kind of just talked me through it. And she came to town a couple days later, and that's really when me thinking about medically transitioning had came back up. This was about 3 years ago now. Had came back up was because her and I were having conversations and just kind of being in this really vulnerable place coming out of that. It made me kind of be a little bit more honest with the people in my life.
And where are you at this point, Dawn? Are you open to understanding or totally accepting the transgender part of this?
So when she left after all of that,
the initial
and there was initial contact because we're all trying to get her help. Like,
fix her.
Fix her. My other sister got involved. The older sister were like horrified. We got to pick up the pieces because the other sister isn't her mother, and so her
the
father.
whole family's going to rally around to fix Dominic.
Yeah, her
Right.
father now's involved, right? We're all rallying together, kind of.
Oh, now Dad's involved.
Now Dad's involved.
He circled back around for a bit.
We're gonna fix her. This is all wrong, right? And so, and I already shared. I mean, that therapist was picked perfectly by her mother and father. That was more of an agenda to like, you're either going to be a boy or a gay boy. Like, there's going to be no trans. And so through the course of all that happening, she really just, and I don't blame her, didn't have a great taste in her mouth for her uncle and I. So she literally stopped talking to us. We had like a little argument, and that was that. And I mean, I tried over the years, obviously, but she just would have nothing to do with us. And then I respected that because it wasn't about me. And so I would just talk to other people, how's she doing? And they're telling me she's doing fine. So it's like, okay, that's all that matters. It's not like I have to be in her life. As long as she's doing great, but then he, right? Because that's what we're all calling.
Right.
Then
Point out these conversations.
And you're a gay man, and
okay.
always living great as a gay man. Blah, blah, blah. This relationship, and now we pick up where she just left off with that whole thing, and then we were able to open the door and get our relationship back. And I had already gone through so many changes of opening my eyes within that time span of what trans was, because when Queenie came to us, I mean, the only thing I knew about it was this is wrong and this is not acceptable. So I had already done a lot of like, I already accept all that. So it was easy for her to tell me because I'm like, okay, cool.
So some of these are easier, quicker answers, and some of them we have to give all this backstory. So this brings us all the way back to Kelsey's question.
Yes.
Why are you here with Dawn and Gary?
Okay. Yeah.
Because you lived in Vegas. You grew up in Vegas.
Yes.
Which of course is another box checked for all of you that have her figured out. Absent family, absent father, no mail. Oh, she lives in Sin City.
Yeah, exactly.
So why are you here now?
So I pretty much like after that relationship and everything had happened, I kind of basically like had a breakdown, and I bought a ticket. My sister lives in Indiana, and I just bought a ticket to go to Indiana. I was like, I want to transition, but it's never going to happen here. I know too many people. I grew up with everybody here.
So you go to the home of Vice President Mike Pence at the time.
I don't know. It just seemed like a good
What
idea.
What a choice.
That's where I was at. I was like, oh, that's a place. That's a place where there's a bed waiting for me.
Yeah.
So see you guys later.
And she called and she's like, oh my gosh, because her and her sister can be together, live together. And I hung up the phone. I'm like, Gary, she's going to Indiana, like a small town Indiana. I was actually horrified, but I didn't want to ruin anything for her. I was.
You'd already done enough at that point.
Yeah, I was actually scared every day she was there.
I bet.
Because this is small town Indiana. I'm like waiting to get the call that someone has kicked her ass.
So did you suggest to her she come live with you, or how did we get there?
Well,
I was drinking a lot while I was there. I think that I was like, I'm gonna transition, but that just means that I'm gonna put on crop tops and get drunk. And so that's kind of
well, that is a transition.
Yeah.
It's not the kind you're doing now.
yes. So I was pretty much just drinking a lot, and her and I were talking just about every day because she was worried, and I didn't have issues with people there, to be honest with you. I think that it's either A, people mind their own business there, which is unlike a lot of places.
Yeah, the Midwest.
Or B, it was just so outside of their their thought process to believe that a transgender person sitting there. It just never really came up. I never really had to explain to people there who I was. It was just chill. But she was pretty much like, you know what? Why don't you come out here to California where you can probably get better medical attention? Because I wasn't taking hormones at this particular point. I had no idea where to begin. I had stored this and shelved this in my life for so long that I didn't even know where to begin with it. That's why I was just drinking and wearing crop tops, because that's what I knew how to do. But so it was kind of just it was very logical. It wasn't this over dramatic telenovela moment of come out here to us, we'll save you. It wasn't that way. It was very just real, and she just wanted me here with her, and I wanted to be here with her, and I missed her, and she reminded me of a part of my life that I really lost touch with because I kind of demonized my entire childhood when it really wasn't all that bad. Now that I'm healing, and I think that I just needed that, and it feels good to be a part of a family.
Okay, so